I have an important message now, too. This is directed at the people who know. The people who know. I'm asking you as a friend. Life is calling, man. It's time to pick up the phone. Big people do big things. Small people do small things. The courageous are going to speak out. I don't want to hear lectures about, oh, my pension and I resigned and walked away from my job, and there was no guarantee anything was ever going to come out of it because I believed in something bigger, so you can spare me the lectures. You'll probably get whistleblower protection. Go get yourself a lawyer and speak out now. You're running out of time. Life's calling, man. Pick up the phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the bombshell news drop of the day. Today is Sunday, July 13, 2025. And as we await the most inevitable future to produce the devastation, but expected outcome from the most recent turn of events, apparently stepping down, resignation, quitting, the drama that's unfolding inside the White House within MAGA, the infighting, the fallout, and apparently a rogue hacker known only as Island Boy breached a protected internal media server and released the full Epstein list on the dark web. Luke Rutkowski and Hustle Bitch told me that this means we are never going to get justice. And breaking, Dan Bongino has allegedly stepped down as FBI Deputy Director. Announcement coming soon. And I've got more on Dan Bongino and his reaction to the Epstein files not being released. And he said it, get this, folks, and I quote, "Life is calling, man. Pick up the phone." And folks, if you're a conservative, Republican, or maybe just an independent, because I think Trish Reagan said that she is an independent.
It just is and that's what Trump is saying. And people are saying, oh, Trish, you're just, a party person. I'm really not. I'm really not. But I like this president and I want him to succeed. I'm actually a registered independent, but you didn't know that. I'm a registered independent because my feeling is anybody who's going to keep us safe and wants to cut taxes and give more money to the people and embraces capitalism and national security, don't forget JFK cut taxes. I'm willing, ready and able, okay? I'm not going to get boxed in by any party, but this president is very special, remarkable, has accomplished so much. Matt Gaetz.
I think she said that the other day, but regardless, you already know how Karen Bass is one of the worst mayors in America, right? A far left Democrat who's turned Los Angeles into a sanctuary for criminals and a nightmare for taxpayers. Well, the latest news out of LA just proves it all over again. And over the past few days, Karen Bass has doubled down on her anti-American policies by announcing cash handouts to illegal immigrants affected by President Trump's much-needed immigration enforcement raids. At the same time, a Biden-appointed activist judge has stepped in to hamstring ICE operations in the area, and Karen Bass is celebrating it like it's a freaking victory.
We have seen lower courts side, frankly, with a lot of the Democratic officials on some of these immigration issues. And then as they're appealed, some of the more conservative courts side with the administration. Are you afraid that's going to happen again?
Well, that is definitely a risk. We do understand that, but it's just so important for Angelenos to understand that we stood together as a city. We peacefully protested because that is critical. And we used all of the tools in our democratic toolbox, and that was the courts.
And lastly, is there, because I'm concerned when I see what's happening that somebody's going to get seriously hurt when you see the tension on one of the sides. I mean, could be an ICE agent, could be somebody in the streets. Is there a way to cool down the temperature here? Is there a deal maybe to be made on sanctuary cities? Is there some negotiation behind the scenes with you and the administration to try to take things down a notch?
Well, you should know, and you know me, I'm always willing to talk. I'm always willing to have a discussion. But the way you cool down the temperature is you stop what you are doing.
This is the kind of insanity that's driving California into the ground, and it's why we need to keep fighting to take back our cities from these radical leftists.
When I heard this news about the cash payments, I thought this cannot possibly be true. But then on reflection, I thought, of course it's true, because California already provides the most generous benefits for illegal immigrants of any state by far. Newsom has driven Medicaid insolvent by giving out free comprehensive benefits for everyone. And now Bass is giving out these free cash cards. And apparently one of the ways you can get one is if you're too afraid to go into work. Well, number one, this fear, to the extent that it exists, is largely driven by Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, who have purposely incited fear and driven these rioters into a state of frenzy. But number two, if we say that if you're too afraid to go to work, you get free cash payments, I think that all of a sudden we're going to find there are a lot more people who are suddenly too afraid to go into work. But the real kicker in all this is that Karen Bass has chosen, of all groups, Churla to distribute the cards. Now remember, this is the group that got $34 million in funding and then played a central role in organizing the riots.
And let me just break this down for you guys with the key facts. Straight from reliable sources, as far as I can tell, no spin, just the truth that the mainstream media like CNN tries to bury. And yeah, it's July. We're coming up on an anniversary here. It's kind of strange to say, but it's a reminder, as social media is reminding me, that this is the same time that CNN decided to broadcast a Trump rally live, for which they have never done before. And apparently brought high-speed cameras to catch some super slow-mo action for replay, I guess. Be that as it may, I'm going to focus on what's verifiable and most recent here as of today, because we all know how frustrated we've become with the bullshit that's being put out there on a regular basis. So while I'm thinking about it, let me share this one to you from California. Centersquare.com. Newsom unveils a $101 million announcement to rebuild Palisades, right? Good news after the fires, right? But there's a catch. It's all going to be low-income housing. And it says here that 6 months after the devastating Palisades and Eaton fires, California Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled a $101 million funding promise for multi-family low-income housing development. And I guess I'm just kind of curious how he was able to push this through. Meanwhile, the folks who have been devastated by this loss are still struggling to just get permits to clean up debris and begin their own rebuild. Sounds like a land grab to me, but what do I know?
We want to get going.
The Palisades rebuilding. Residents at this city council committee hearing held on the west side were here to discuss how to move forward.
The blessing here is that we have been given an opportunity to show the world how you do disaster relief and rebuilding effectively.
But the Department of Building and Safety told the committee so far it has approved just 4 permits. Councilmember Tracy Park, who represents the Palisades, says that's not acceptable.
You know, when I hear in a committee meeting like we had today that only 4 permits have been issued and we're on day 75 post-fire, that is concerning to me. And I don't think it is necessarily a lack of interest in rebuilding. I suspect it is indicative of systemic issues that we need to continue to focus on.
Mayor Karen Bass hired a private consulting firm to oversee the recovery effort. The contract with Haggerty Consulting is $10 million, and some council members say that raises questions.
We have city departments who know how to do this recovery, who have been involved in recovery efforts of the past, and yet they can't be afforded the opportunity to hire the personnel that they need, but we can give a $10 million contract to an outside agency to help write a report for us. For me, just is, it's obscene.
All right, so I'm here at the City of LA One-Stop Rebuilding Center, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of a couple things. Karen Bass came out with a big press conference where she said, we're going to waive all permit fees for Pacific Palisades fire victims, but we've submitted plans, and we found out that those permit fees were not waived. So we're going to come here right to the source, and we're going to find out what's going on with that publicity stunt she pulled. And we're also going to try and find out exactly how many permits have been issued, because by the looks of it, things are going pretty slow.
People have to see stuff getting done.
So I saw Mayor Bass came out and was saying that all permit fees are going to be waived, but I don't think that's happened yet. We paid fees on a couple other permits.
No, you did.
Yeah, is there going to be a refund on those, or?
Waived is not the correct word. They're suspended.
Okay. As of right now, how long is it taking for, once a plan reaches you guys for it to be approved? Do you know what we can expect for the fire rebuilds?
Approved is kind of out of our hands.
Do you know how many permits have been issued so far?
Very, very few. I don't have the statistics on that, but very, very few.
Well, thank you very much. You've been super helpful. I appreciate it. All right, so we just left the LA City One-Stop Rebuilding Center. So just because you haven't paid permit fees yet, you still may have to in the future. And for those of you who have paid permit fees, myself being one of those, you may or may not get a refund. So this was nothing more than a publicity stunt, and we can expect nothing else from Karen Bass.
All right, folks, let's talk about the latest development out of Los Angeles with Mayor Karen Bass, as we've long seen her as a symbol of everything that's gone wrong with far left leadership, prioritizing ideology over everyday Americans, turning a once vibrant city into a hotspot for chaos and wasteful spending. Well, over the past couple of days, she's doubled down on that reputation with two big moves that have a lot of us shaking our heads in disbelief: handing out cash to illegal immigrants affected by ICE raids and cheering on a judge who's trying to tie the hands of federal immigration enforcement. It's frustrating to say the least, but it's also a clear reminder of why we need to keep pushing back against these policies. And I'm going to break it down for you guys. First off, stick with me here. There's this cash handout program Karen Bass rolled out. And just a couple of days ago, she signed an executive directive aimed at providing immediate relief to immigrant communities dealing with the Trump administration's ICE raids. Yeah, all they got to do is say that they are afraid to go to work. The idea is to distribute prepaid cash cards, each loaded with a couple $100s, to people who have taken a financial hit, like lost wages from being too scared to go to work because of deportation worries. I guess it's kind of funny. You want to know how you can avoid and eliminate any worry of being deported? Yeah. Bass insists the funds come from private donations, but critics are quick to note that it's all being funneled through nonprofits that depend heavily on public money, which naturally raises eyebrows about where taxpayer dollars might really be ending up. The group handling a lot of this distribution is the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, or CHIRLA, and they've got a track record of organizing protests, including some involvement in the 2020 riots that left parts of LA in ashes, and they've raked in over $34 million in government grants in recent years, and that's roughly 40% of their budget. And for many of us, that's a real insult to law-abiding citizens who work hard every day, only to see their taxes paid, potentially propping up groups accused of stirring up trouble.
Frankly, it is outrageous and un-American that we have federal armed vehicles in our parks when nothing is going on in the parks.
Said, I've got to go. I said, what's going on, Mayor? She goes, well, something's going on in MacArthur Park. MacArthur Park is this beautiful park here downtown Los Angeles.
What happened to the criminals, the drug dealers, the violent individuals who were in the park today were children. It was their summer camp, their summer day camp.
These are literally government-funded, riot-producing NGO organizations. Qualifying for these cards seems pretty straightforward. Anyone in immigrant neighborhoods who claims they've been impacted by the raids, including undocumented workers, can apply. There's no mention of rigorous verification. Just say you're facing fear or hardship and you're in. On the surface, it might sound compassionate, maybe, but it feels more like an incentive for people to stay home and dodge deportation, all while LA grapples with exploding homelessness, persistent crime, and a staggering $1 billion budget deficit. With over 800,000 undocumented immigrants in the city, this could balloon into millions of dollars that might otherwise go towards fixing potholes, bolstering police forces, or supporting our veterans, or just scooping up poop off the street. And odds are these folks will probably receive the money faster than actual citizens and homeowners would receive any permit to work on their own property.
It's a crime. And again, another example of how the city government of Los Angeles is waging a campaign of insurrection against the federal government. Let's be very clear. What would Los Angeles look like without illegal aliens? Here's what it would look like. You would be able to see a doctor in the emergency room right away, no wait time, no problem. Your kids would go to a public school that had more money than they know what to do with. Classrooms would be half the size. Students who had special needs would get all the attention that they needed. There would be no violent transnational gangs. There would be no cartels. There would be no Mexican mafia. There would be no Serenos. There would be no MS-13. There would be no TDA. You would be living in a city that would be safe, that would be clean. There would be no drug dens. That could be the future Los Angeles could have, but the leaders in Los Angeles have formed an alliance with the cartels and the criminal aliens.
Conservative leaders aren't staying quiet about it, though. Congressman Kevin Kiley and Stephen Miller have labeled it as essentially aiding and abetting illegal immigration, and Stephen Miller's vision of a raid-free LA is compelling. Imagine shorter waits in emergency rooms, schools flush with funding and smaller class sizes, nonviolent gangs like MS-13 roaming the streets, and neighborhoods cleared of dens, oh yeah, and the traffic. Far less of it. Yet, Karen Bass seems determined to keep LA as a haven for lawbreakers. Interestingly, since the raids kicked off, traffic has lightened up noticeably. People have posted this on social media and it's buzzing about crediting fewer undocumented drivers on the roads, and that's a small silver lining for commuters, but these handouts could undermine even that. And let's not overlook the anger from Black American conservatives in Los Angeles who point out that Karen Bass, being Black herself, is sidelining homeless foundational Black Americans in favor of foreigners. One viral post on social media summed it up, saying she's moving like Karen Bass, Estrada Martinez Varela at this point. Stop falling for the skin tone trick. And it's a fair question to ask. Where's the support for communities battered by years of Democrat mismanagement?
Fox is told that federal judge Mame Awusi Mensah Frimpong, a Biden appointee, has written a tentative order that will potentially block the Trump administration, DHS, from carrying out some of the most controversial parts of its immigration sweeps here in the LA area. In particular, DHS will be blocked from conducting stops of suspected illegal immigrants unless the agent has a reasonable suspicion that there is a violation of immigration law. Additionally, the Trump administration will be blocked from relying on race, Spanish-speaking, location, and type of work when making immigration arrests. Now, plaintiff attorneys argue that as this hearing was taking place, a farm in Camarillo, north of Los Angeles, was being raided by federal agents, with farm workers being taken into federal custody. They said that highlights the urgency of this case.
Then there's the judicial side of things, which only amps up the frustration. On the same day, July 11, U.S. District Judge, and I'm going to butcher this name not intentionally, Mame Awusi Mensah Frimpong, a Biden appointee, issued a temporary restraining order to halt what she called indiscriminate immigration sweeps in the LA region. Under her ruling, ICE agents must have reasonable suspicion of an immigration violation before making a stop, and they can't factor in things like race, speaking Spanish, location, or job type. And this stemmed from lawsuits by immigration rights groups spotlighting a raid at a cannabis farm in Camarillo, just north of LA, where workers, including children, were detained. Workplace raids aren't new. They've been a staple of ICE operations through multiple administrations, but this judge deems them discriminatory, especially in sanctuary cities like LA, where undocumented folks can openly hunt for off-the-books jobs at spots like Home Depot or farms without local law enforcement looping in ICE. Karen Bass hailed it as a victory for using all the tools in our Democratic playbook or toolbox, even acknowledging it might get overturned on appeal, essentially admitting it's a delayed tactic to thwart President Trump. And she connected it to the recent National Guard presence in MacArthur Park, a well-known drug hub worsened by her lenient policies, claiming Trump's goons were frightening families when they were actually there to restore order. This feels like classic judicial overreach. lower courts slapping on unconstitutional blocks, fully aware the Supreme Court, where President Trump has a strong track record on immigration, will likely reverse them. And in the short term, though, it stalls deportations and gives cover to these criminals. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has slammed the decision, calling it yet another way Democrats are misusing the courts to undermine border security. At the end of the day, this all boils down to why Karen Bass's leadership is so damaging to Los Angeles. She epitomizes the laws and flaws in Democrat governance, showering preferential treatment on illegal immigrants while citizens foot the bill, all amid a city plagued by crime, drugs, and gridlock, courtesy of her and Governor Gavin Newsom's open border mindset. As Stephen Miller put it, without this chaos, we'd enjoy safer communities, top-notch schools, and efficient hospitals. Instead, Karen Bass champions immigrants as the backbone of America, overlooking the hardworking citizens who truly built it. And without them, where would she even get the taxpayer money to fund this? Now, folks, let's be clear. This isn't true compassion. It's reckless, rewarding lawlessness, straining our resources, and chipping away at our national sovereignty. If Californians continue, Angelenos continue electing leaders like her, they'll reap what they sow. But the ripple effects hit us all, right? And that's why we must rally behind President Trump's deportation efforts, demand accountability for activist judges, and work to oust every Democrat perpetuating this mess. Let's put America first and make our cities great again. What are your thoughts on all this? Should Karen Bass resign? Should she step down? I love to hear from you guys. I can't wait to read your comments, and hopefully you guys are still here with me and this mandate, this president, this administration, because I know that there are some folks out there who aren't, or who at least aren't anymore. For instance, I think I've got one here from Matt Walsh, and it says, up until 10 seconds ago, there was unanimous agreement that Epstein was a pedophile and sex trafficker with high-profile clientele who all must be exposed and brought to justice. Now, out of the blue, we're being told that none of that is true, and anyone who believes this thing that everyone believed is a whack job and a conspiracy theorist. This is the kind of shameless 180-degree unexplained pivot that leftists typically specialize in. Very weird to see it happening on the right. While Mike Sington says, ticking time bomb. Trump's favorite show, Fox and Friends, tells him he screwed up by trying to ignore the Epstein scandal.
Lots and lots of questions that have been swirling about Jeffrey Epstein for a long time, for over 10 years, and the government's involvement in it. If there's anybody who could walk in and say, okay, we've resolved all of the questions and there is nothing here, it would be President Trump and his crew. The problem is you can't really do it without giving some explanation, and there has to be some explanation, and I think that's why you have a lot of people still pretty with a lot of very valid questions about it.
You absolutely nailed it. You can defuse this ticking time bomb if you simply get out there, sit down, the AG, get the deputy director, and get the director himself. Put them in front of cameras, have them make a statement, and have them answer questions. We're only talking about 5 or 10 questions. But what this will do is, first of all, restores confidence. Number 2, it answers some of the basics, especially the simple things like, you can't tell me that 1,000 people were hurt and that there are no people out there that we can arrest. You can't tell me that, oh, sorry, we don't have a list. Fine, don't have a list. Tell me who the perpetrators were. Let's depose every single person who might have had a chance to get on that list and might have been out there at that island, and let's talk to them. Let's find out what happened. You're telling me other videos out there in New Mexico and at the island and in New York, and nobody saw anything? I don't buy it, and that's why they need to get out there and face the fire. Doesn't have to be long. But you have to answer questions to the American people, because absent that, the story won't die, and that's a distraction the president doesn't want.
Of course, and in that in that True Social that he put out. He talked about all his accomplishments.
Yeah.
And he's saying, why let's not let this overcome. And I think he doesn't want that. I think his supporters don't want that. And I think that's why they want just some simple answers.
Yeah. And of course, he's right about that. I mean,
There's no question.
None of this mars any of the extraordinary accomplishments, and we want to keep going.
That's right.
All right.
It doesn't mar, but it doesn't mean that that's not how the game is played, and the media is going to twist it and spin it, and how MAGA loyalists and maybe independents on the fence, and definitely leftist liberal Democrats are going to have a field day with this. And Mike Engelman says that if Pam Bondi remains Attorney General, none of the deep state traitors like Letitia James, John Brennan, James Comey, Fauci, Adam Schiff, or AOC are ever going to jail, much less prosecuted. Not to mention the Dan Bongino, Cash Patel fallout. She has to go. That look.
Okay. So President Trump has acknowledged that the Epstein files exist here. President Trump has acknowledged that the files were written and that there is something there. He says that they were written, however, by his enemies and therefore will not be released. Whoa, what? That's new in this entire zeitgeist. This is something that is wildly interesting. And then he goes all in on supporting Cash Patel and Pam Bondi. No mention of Dan Bongino, where all of this, again, sort of transpired. Okay. So President Trump.
Well, based on what Benny Johnson just said there, I got to leave you guys with this one. And Reseth asks, why didn't Trump sue Elon? And we see this post here where it says, mark this post for the future, Elon Musk says. The truth will come out. Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the reason, that is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. DJT.